Hanging out in Carlsbad at the Focus headquarters for North America, checking out one of their newer bikes. This is the Jarifa I29 Pro. Comes in 3 different sizes. They'll have this glossy red with some matte black orange accents. Really bright, colorful bike. And of course the I29, that 29 designates these 29 by 2.2 inch tires. Now this is a hardtail with an air fork, RockShox Recon, remote lockout. I feel like it'd be a great cross-country bike, again, given the larger wheel diameter. That does elevate the frame a little bit. And it's just nice to be able to dial in the size of the frame from there, but you've also got a remote seat post dropper. So what I found is that, I've got it set pretty high and that's comfortable, but I can drop it down pretty quickly, as I would if I was doing enduro or downhill. You're high up when you're climbing and when you're spinning fast, and then when you want to go over some bumps and you want to be able to use your legs to kind of absorb some of that shock, you can stand up, you can drop the seat post, and you've got a little bit of clearance. So it's really nice. I like to use electric bikes for fun, of course. This is a class 1. You can take it on trails more easily than a class 2, which would have a throttle, or class 3, which is high speed. So it's a little bit more accessible in that sense. But I also like to use them for utility and commuting. A bike like this, you could use it to get to work during the week, and then on the weekend you could take it out for fun. Or maybe you live somewhere where you've got to cut across some trails and stuff to get to work, or just makes it more fun. A bike like this could do it. It's actually got a really great range. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But one of the things I feel like is missing, or a missed opportunity, is seat stay bosses. They could have added some of those, and it'd make for mounting a little bit of a nicer rack. Of course, you could try to mount a beam rack to this seat post, but since it's a dropper, you're somewhat limited there. And again, they have, fenders and stuff. There's actually a threaded boss beneath, where kind of that triangle there on the seat stays. And then some holes right here. Those ones don't look threaded. That might be for fenders, but there's not one up front. So it's just kind of like, yeah, you can kind of work around it. At least they have bottle cage boss right here, so you could add a little mini pump or a bottle cage. And I do like the way the battery actually swivels out to the side, so if you do add a cup holder, you're not going to be like bang and banging into the cage or whatnot. It's a neat design. It's pretty well integrated. Yeah, it's black and it doesn't perfectly match this metallic sparkly black accent. That's always a trade-off. It's like you want the weight low and centered, especially for a mountain bike. You don't want unsprung weight. This is a hardtail, so it wouldn't matter quite as much if it had a hub motor, but you're getting a lot of efficiency from that mid-drive, especially for climbing and just going further. So this is an 11 42 teeth SRAM GX. Got nice cutout, kind of punched out chain rings in the back. I really like that. And then up front, a little bit of a bash guard with a more traditional, just single chain ring. So it's an 11-speed bike. That's decent especially for electric bikes. A lot of times they don't have a front derailleur because you've got the mid-drive and there's a lot of power, and it's just more things that can kind of get bumped, and they figure, okay, well, you've got electric assist. You really need those super high and super low ranges, especially with 20-mile-per-hour top speed on this. I think they made a good choice. And again, those punched out sprockets, they help to reduce the weight. This bike doesn't weigh a whole lot. It's 50.5 pounds. That's okay, again, given the higher battery capacity, which we'll talk about in a minute. Rounding off some of the other specs here, we've just got some plastic concept pedals, platform concept, which again I think is like sort of the Focus in-house brand. Seat post dropper with the remote lever right there. CEX concept saddle. I looked underneath, it says Velo. Velo makes most of the saddles out there, so that's no surprise. Locking concept grips, and then Shimano hydraulic disc brakes. 180 millimeter front and rear M16 with a tiny little lever, so you can pull that with just a finger or two. And they're actually spaced in pretty far right now. That might be because it's set up for a single finger. I'm going to try to show you the disc from the other side here. You might notice that there's a 12 millimeter thru-axle there with the maxle marking. One thing I didn't see was a slap guard. I was kind of surprised there's not even like a little clear piece of tape right here, so that could get nicked up. And then if we go up to the front, there's another 180 millimeter rotor along with a 15 millimeter thru-axle up here, and DT Swiss is making the rims and that hub. So nice stuff, like definitely some name brand pieces, a good looking bike, great integration. And Focus, they've been around since like 1992. There's a famous cyclocross rider who started this as basically a traditional bike company, but they've entered into the electric bike space and more recently into America. It's a German company. They really scrutinize like the details. They do a lot of testing. And as I understand it, they actually assemble these in Germany. So they'll get the parts like this RockShox fork, and then they'll actually assemble the fork there and test it. So it's really a lot of attention to detail on like some of the painting and things like that. This one actually seems like it's wrapped or something. You can see there's a little bit of an edge from the paint, the red, to maybe the undercoat, which is that darker black. Some of what I'm mixing in here is what I've been told because I'm at the headquarters and they're giving me the background. You are paying a bit more for this bike. It's like $45.99. It's not a whole lot more, it's like reasonable given some of the specs and stuff. And we can finally get to the motor. This is the Impulse 3rd generation Evo motor, and it's still rated at 250 watts nominal, but now you're getting 100 Newton meters of torque is what I'm told, and that's pretty incredible. It is a little bit more pronounced. Like I am hearing it a little bit more than some of the older designs. It's performing well. I'm trying not to get this one too dirty. It's a brand new kind of a showpiece for them, but I have been riding it around, having a good time. And the motor is just really efficient. It's measuring your wheel speed in the back, your pedal cadence, and pedal torque. So you push a little bit harder and you get that power. There's a bit of a delay on these compared to something like Bosch that has a smaller sprocket. This is quieter, but it's also not quite as like ream. Like Bosch starts and stops quickly and it feels very zippy. This is a little smoother and it slows down with a little bit more delay, which could be questionable if you're out there on a steep trail or kind of I guess cliffside terrain with soft rocks or something like that. I always think about that with electric mountain bikes. It's a little bit different, and they don't have motor inhibitors built into the brake levers because it relies in part on torque sensing. So that's one of those trade-off areas. It's a bike that's worth test riding, getting a feel for. It does feel great, and I think one of the highlights for me is just the battery capacity. So this is 36 volts, 16.75 amp hours. It's pretty enormous. I mean, a lot of the other packs out there, like I'm comparing Bosch, that's 36 volt, 11 amp hours, or now 13.4 with their 500 watt pack. This is quite a bit higher than that, and they advertise like, oh, you can get 120 plus miles, and it's pretty reasonable depending on your weight and the terrain and all that other, even the wind and stuff plays a role. But you can go further. People are regularly reporting like, hey, 70, 80 miles, and depending on your pedal assist level. Like that's the other thing. You just got to think about like, okay, what's going on here? How am I using the bike? And then factor that in. It does give you some really cool readouts about range. Of course, you could take the charger along. That's what I'm looking at here. It's like 1.8 pounds, 3 amps. So it's a little bit of a faster charger, and it does have the magnetic energy bus interface. So if you trip over this, it just comes right out. It doesn't bend any pins, and it doesn't knock the whole bike over. I like it. It's not the most compact thing in the world, but it's also not the biggest or the heaviest charger. So, that's a pretty good choice, I think, on their part. One thing I've noticed coming back to the battery is that, yeah, you've got a little bit of a power indicator here, but I feel like I had to turn that on before I could turn on the display. It's like a two-step thing. Maybe I was just getting a little bit confused. I prefer to just like once press the on button up here. And then the battery design, as I was saying earlier, sort of tips out to the side. So you put the key in there on the left. I think I've got the key in my pocket. You do not have to leave it in when riding, which is, of course, awesome. So you twist like that, and then this just pivots out to the side. Look at that. That's really cool. So you can come back to that cup holder area, the bottle cage, and it's not going to get in the way too much. You can see the cables are internally routed down there. Really nice, staying out of the way. Getting it back in required a little bit of a, kind of push down on it, lock it, and you're set. And even then, there's still a little bit of play, a little bit of wiggling going on. This one's brand new, so it's pretty tight. But I was looking at one from a demo track earlier, or another bike that uses the same battery, and it's just a tiny bit loose, but not bad. It's a neat design. It's something I haven't seen from other companies quite like that. Okay, so the cockpit, we got the SRAM trigger shifters on the right, those short brake levers, seat post dropper, remote lockout for that RockShox fork in the front. Again, air, nice to have that. We've got rebound adjust down at the bottom. And then those quick release wheels, having 2 quick release wheels just makes trail maintenance a lot easier. It can lighten the bike quite a bit, and that battery weighs about 7 pounds. So being able to take the battery, take the wheels off, you can toss this in the back of your car, turn the handlebars sideways, and ready to go. You don't even need a bike rack. But if you do have a bike rack, one of those hanging racks, it might fit in here. This is a little bit tighter than some of the other Diamonds. That's the only style this frame comes in. No low steps or anything like that. It's reasonable. A lot of the racks I use for electric bikes these days are like platform racks. I just tend to do that again at about 50 pounds. It's nice to have the extra strength and not have to lift it super high. Flat bar, relatively wide. I've already got the display going, and you can see, from the side, it's a little bit thicker. It's a little bit chunkier, but it's real easy to adjust the angle. And we've got these nice plugs in the back, so you can maybe add an extra one over here. I'm not sure what that's for. And then I'm also not sure, a lot of times they try to make it modular, so if you have something break, you can just replace that part, like over here, the little circle for your button pad, and then you just plug it back into the display. The display does have a micro USB charging port on the back, which is super cool, because if you're someone who's using your phone as like a GPS, or maybe you're just listening to music, that can drain the battery, and it's nice to tap into that really big reservoir of capacity on the main pack. So really, really tight integration. Some of the other bikes from Calcoff or Focus, they actually have lights integrated. This one doesn't, which is fine. It's a mountain bike, I get that. But, maybe you have a USB powered light, you could plug it right in there. Coming back to the display, because it's not removable, if you're going down something that's pretty rigorous and precarious and you crash, this display looks fairly tough, but it might get banged around a little bit. It's already a little bit slightly loose. The handlebars don't curve up or anything. That's something that High Bike and some of the other brands, Bulls, they have curved bars, and so it's meant to kind of protect the display, and the display is removable a lot of times depending on the drive system. So this is an area of sensitivity for me. Just like kind of be careful, try not to crash. That flat bar is good for aggressiveness. The other companies have been kind of angling the stem down and then doing risers, so you get the same geometry, but you have a little bit more protection. So coming back to the display itself, we've already turned it on over here. It is backlit, and they've got a big light right there in the middle. Got some cool infographics here, but that light is just like redundant to me. We've got a battery icon, and it actually shows it's almost like pixels of how full it is. It's not just like 5 bars, which would be 20% increments. It's like really minute increments, and it gives you your range estimate there. So it says 42 miles in eco mode, and we're not even halfway full on the battery. So that's pretty phenomenal, 42 miles. If I arrow up to some of those higher assist levels, Sport, 28 miles, Power, 16 miles, Ultra, 13 miles. Ultra's the most fun to ride and test on, so you can hear the motor. I'm going to do that a little bit later, but I actually ride on maybe like Power or Sport most of the time. And we've got a clock in the middle, power level, meter. It shows like how hard the bike's working. Speed, it's currently in miles per hour. And then some other readouts at the bottom that you can navigate with that set button. So it says trip max speed, trip average speed, tour average speed, cadence, overall distance, trip time, trip max speed. So it's, it's kind of cool. It circles around. You just keep pressing that until you get something that you're interested in. And then, of course, we can hold set and get into some really cool options. You can actually adjust climb assist, which is a setting that basically says, well, hey, we're giving you lots of power based on pedal torque climbing, but when you get to the top of the hill, you still want to maintain your speed. So maybe we shouldn't ease off so quickly. We should kind of recognize you're still pedaling at a high cadence and you're in hilly terrain. We're going to be more consistent, and that's something you can enable. There's also sort of the shift sensing delay. That's one of the huge things when you're using a mid-drive. Yeah, you get the benefit of all those sprockets and the chain and everything to empower you and the motor, but you also can end up mashing all that stuff because it's not just your body pushing on that chain, it's also that motor with potentially 100 newton meters of force. So this one has a physical shift sensor. As the wire slides when you're shifting gears, it tells the motor, hey, ease off. And you can adjust that. You can actually fine tune it and say, hey, I don't want it to ease off so much, or yeah, ease off more because I'm mashing those gears. A lot of it comes down to how you ride. So, it's some getting used to, but it's nice that they open this up. To get to all those settings, you just hold set for a few minutes, 5 seconds, and then you arrow up and down. So you can delete your trip data, go to the settings here, personalize, go to device settings. You can mess with the display, backlighting, all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and hit back, and I'm at the main menu again. One of the other cool features of this bike and the new systems is that you can connect your phone using Bluetooth. So I've downloaded the Impulse app, and I'm able to sync it and use it as like a GPS. And it integrates with the bike a little bit. Yeah, I could use Google Maps or whatever too, but this way it's sort of telling me, okay, you're riding your bike, it's giving me a few different stats, it's helping me to identify where I want to go, and then I can put the phone in my pocket, and the display on the bike becomes my interface. So you don't have to have it cluttering your handlebars, and that's especially nice on a mountain bike like this. So I do like it. The app's pretty focused. It seems like it does a decent job. I haven't used it a whole lot, to be honest with you, but it's nice that they're doing that, and it's just an optional thing. You don't, like, a lot of times on electric bikes, I'm noticing that they have apps where you can adjust everything and you get more of the settings, but that's already taken care of on the main display, and that means you don't need to take your phone to make any of those settings changes. So I think they're doing it right. Again, the only complaint I have is that the display isn't removable and it's kind of big. So yeah, coming back to just the shift sensing, the higher capacity battery, the really good quality parts, and the nice build, and the reputation of this company is phenomenal in Germany. You know, you get that 2-year comprehensive warranty in the States. It's not bad. It might be time to go ahead and hop on this thing and do a little bit of a test ride now. Okay, I'm gonna go all the way up to Ultra, adjust that display a little bit. Whoa, you feel it kick in a little bit. So you do have some control over the settings, but I think it's just kind of set up by default right now, and I'm gonna judge based on that. It feels a little bit slower to kick in, especially when I'm riding at speed, than Bosch. It also cuts out a lot slower. You can see that chainring continue to go quite a while after even I've stopped pedaling, which surprises me given that it is such a sophisticated sensor. I would have expected it to stop faster, but then again, sometimes you don't want it to stop. You're like, hey, I still want the power, I still want the help, I'm climbing. And to be fair, right now I'm pedaling and I'm getting no support, and that's because it's not enough. I'm not pushing hard enough. There's not a lot of torque. So it's a system that you can kind of finesse, right? Like, depending on how you ride, the system's gonna respond. And I do really like that. Let's do some shift sensing. I'm a little bit surprised. I was expecting it to like cut the motor a little bit more, and it seemed like the motor was just going the whole time. Again, I haven't been into the settings and messed around with it too much. It's one of the technologies that they really tout as like, oh yeah, we have physical shift sensing. But to me, that just felt like not shift sensing. So I don't know. Let's get it up to 20. There we go. It's top speed right there. Okay, I was complaining about shift sensing before. I went into the menu. I changed it from 150 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds just to see if that changes. I'm going to give you an up-close view of the motor. I'm going to start out in Eco, the lowest level, so you can hear what it sounds like, see how responsive it is. And then I'm going to go up to Ultra just to get that top speed and, see how that sounds. And that's cool. So what's happening is I wasn't putting on enough torque, so the torque sensor wasn't engaging. And if I put just a little bit of torque on, it responds in kind. And and then a little bit more. So that's the advanced sensor technology. All in all, it feels pretty good, and the motor's relatively quiet. It's compact. It looks nice. Those are all things I think about when I'm riding an electric mountain bike, because I don't really want to stand out. I also want to focus on ride quality. I want it to feel balanced. I don't want to feel like I'm losing that unsprung weight advantage, or that the bike's rear heavy, that kind of thing. So I feel like they've built on kind of some proven design approaches that I see from other bikes, and they've just made it look pretty aesthetically pleasing. They've offered those different sizes, and they're bringing that quality background. So yeah, for the full write-up on this, including some standover height and other information that I've just done, just quick measurements, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. And of course, you're riding something like this off-road, be safe. And if you have some feedback, maybe you live in Europe, you know about this bike, you have some tips or other things you want to chime in with, go for it. It's completely open. I appreciate the feedback, and I'll see you on the trail.